Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine 18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. This is a video that I'm making by viewer request that focuses on how I work with Oracle decks. Not too long ago, I made a VR to a tag called HowDoYouTarot, and a couple of folks mentioned in the comments section of that video that they would really like to see a video about how to use Oracle decks or how I use Oracle decks. So this is that video. I've put a tag on it called HowIOracle so that if other folks want to create videos about how they work with Oracle, then they can, and they'll be easily findable using the tag. But I haven't made any prompts. Instead, I've come up with the ways that I work with Oracle, and I'm going to timestamp them and list them in the description box below. And I want to talk about each one and some of the decks that I would use for that kind of reading. For the purpose of this video, I'm really just focused on what we commonly call Oracle decks. I'm not going into non-deck tools like dice or dominoes. I consider these certainly to be oracular, but I'm not going to go there today. I'm also not going into anything with a really strongly established tradition or traditions attached to it. So things like lenormand, playing cards, runes, like none of those things are going to be covered in this video. This is just what we commonly refer to as Oracle decks. And I'm really not surprised that this request came up because I think that, with Oracle decks being each so much their own thing, not part of, a tradition and an established system, they can be hard to know what to do with, right? Some come with guidebooks that give you some hints or some ideas, but not all. And oracles can be so different from each other that you could say, find that the first two oracle decks that you own are so completely different from each other that the way that you've gotten comfortable reading the first one doesn't seem applicable to the second. It was after many, many years of being interested in and reading tarot that I got my first oracle deck, and it was over a year between getting my first oracle deck and my second oracle deck. I find them a bit challenging in the sense that it is really, to me, a kind of situation where you have to really learn each one, right? It's not like you learn, say, a Smith-Waite tradition or system, and then decks that are based on that are going to make sense to you, right? Oracles are sufficiently varied that I think it can be a bit hard to know what to do with them, right? Especially as a beginner. So I hope that this video is useful for the folks who requested it. I hope that other folks share because I do like hearing, how folks work with their Oracle decks. I have no doubt that there are great ideas that I've never thought of in this area, so I would love to hear about that. I will just say, getting started, I'm going to show a lot of decks and talk about using decks for different purposes. I am not trying to imply that you need to go buy 100 Oracle decks in order to be able to read in different ways. I'm going to finish with talking about some decks that I find to be very multi-purpose and very versatile and why I think of them that way, why I experience them that way. I do find, though, that a lot of Oracle decks seem to incline towards working best in certain kinds of reading styles and not others. So that's what I want to get at today. I think that it's helpful because, if you're looking for instance, a deck to do a daily one card affirmation reading, if you, like me, see decks as inclining towards different purposes, you're probably going to look for something different for that than if you were looking for a deck to combine with tarot in large spreads, right? So I do think thinking about style of reading and how you intend to work with something is useful in terms of thinking about what to add to your collection, how to work with the collection that you have. So that's the introductory ramble, obligatory introductory ramble. The first way that I work with oracle cards, and I think it's one that will be familiar to a lot of people, is as a single card reading for an affirming message or an encouraging message for the day or the week or the month or the year, whatever the, time frame may be, but a single card affirmation reading. And one of the decks that I think is a really nice one in my collection for that is the Saltwater Reading Cards by Laura Bowen. The Saltwater Reading Cards are published by Rockpool, and they come with a guidebook. And each card has on it a number, name of what is depicted in the cards, here lionfish, and a single keyword or very short phrase, so here individuality. Now, the reason that this works as a one card affirmation or encouraging message of the day kind of a deck for me is because of this. This is a really well written guidebook. It leans towards encouraging and positive in its tone. You get a good amount of text for each card. And so I really enjoy pulling one card in the morning and then sitting and reading the guidebook as a message of the day. I take this deck traveling a fair amount. I really enjoy this deck. And so if you're looking for a kind of daily affirmation or daily message of encouragement and support kind of a deck, this to me suggests that you might want to look for one that you like the tone of the guidebook and you're going to want to sit and read it and enjoy it and let that message sink in. I don't work with every guidebook of every oracle deck that I have, but one like this, I really love the guidebook and find it indispensable to how I experience this deck as a affirmation of the day. Another deck that I use in a very similar way is the Flora and Fauna of Africa, created by Jesse Jumanji. And this deck has a plant and an animal on each card. The plant is named with its name, Latin name, and a keyword. The animal is named, the Latin name is provided, and there is a message written right on the card. Bush elephant, you are in control. Trust and rely on your strengths. Let your wisdom and intuition guide you. Or caracal, trust your intuition and follow through. Be aware of your surroundings and leap at opportunity. This one doesn't have a guidebook, but it wouldn't need it, right? Because it has the message right on the card. I've been kind of working on a little handmade guidebook for this because I want to write things down that I learned about the animals. But you really don't need a guidebook to work with this. Pick one card and read the message and think about how it might apply for your day. Look for opportunities to express that message in your day and maybe check in at the end of the day with the card that you had picked and where it might have come up, right? This is a beautiful deck for that. And there are a good kind of range of animal decks that I can think of that could work like this one. The Secret Language of the Animals is another one, a mass market one, that has nice little messages on the cards. And this one I really enjoy because it doesn't feel too overly sweet for me. It feels affirming and it feels encouraging and it feels supportive, but it also, face your fears. Isolation is not the only way to protect yourself. Right? That's supportive, but sometimes that message is one that's a little bit hard to hear, right? And I like that this has a wide range of messages, but certainly, a deck review, a good deck review will give you a sense of the overall tone, I think, of a particular deck. Whether the messages are, are all very, very positive and celebratory, or whether there's more of a mix, and you can decide based on what you would prefer. Another deck that just joined my collection that's great for a kind of morning affirmation reading is the Sea Soul Journeys Oracle by Pippa Best, and these have messages on the cards as well. Right. Heard, may your brave call be carried on the wind. Stretch, may you extend your reach. Decide, may you navigate with purpose. And so this to me is a lovely way to start the day. This is kind of a wish to me, is a wish for the day. It's an intention. Compassion, right? Ease. May it be effortless. May the day be effortless. Whatever difficult thing that you have, may it be effortless. Joy. May you pursue what lights you up. This is lovely. And the guidebook has lots of ways to work with this deck. One of the ones that it suggests is in a kind of 3-card past, present, future spread. To me, that actually makes no sense with a deck like this. I would never use this deck for a past, present, future spread. This to me is very much a single message kind of a deck. You could draw the cards intentionally in a particular order, and that's something the guidebook suggests. Working through the messages in a particular order. You could focus on one of the kind of suits. Each of the suits has its own back and focuses on a slightly different theme. So you could kind of restrict the messages that way and just shuffle a quarter of the deck if you wanted to. But this to me is very much a single card draw kind of a deck, right? And it's because of the text on the cards. I find that a deck with a lot of text tends to lean single card draw for me. And that's not me saying that it has to do that for you, but that is how they work for me. So the next one is also a single card draw, but not every single card draw, of course, needs to be a affirmation message of the day. I also draw a single oracle card sometimes as a kind of guide or a kind of source of support throughout the day. And this feels like a different kind of mechanic of reading to me than an affirmation. So if I'm working with something like the Animal Allies, one of my favorite animal decks, this reads differently to me than the ones I've just shown by virtue of the fact that it only has the animal and the animal's name on it. No text. There is a little pamphlet that comes with it with some very short kind of messages. I don't use it. This gives me an animal to explore, to learn from. And I very much learn from animals by learning about them, right? Learning about how they navigate their environment and what they do and how they live, right? What animal might be a good supporter for me this moon cycle? Crab. And you can think in terms of, if you have strong animal associations, as I do in many cases, what that means for you, right? Like what does a turtle mean to you? What is a turtle like? If you're going to be inspired by turtle or by cheetah, you know, what does that mean, right? To me, that's very different than an affirmation, personally. I also tend to do this for a more long term. I don't tend towards necessarily one a day because I want to sit with them a little bit longer and learn from them a little longer. So this is more like a moon cycle or a month or even a week for me to have an animal as a guide to learn from. You could also, use something else if animals are not, something that you prefer to work with. Something like the Tree Lore Oracle, which again has, imagery related to the tree and then the tree's name and a massive guidebook with it. You could work with these as a source of support, right? What lessons does sugar maple have for you this month? And how could that be a support to you in whatever you're dealing with, or black willow? What medicinal properties does white ash have, and what might that mean as a message? What kinds of traditional uses exist for hawthorn, and what does that mean as a message? Which could be a source of support, or it could be a bit of a challenge. It could be lots of things, right? And this is another kind of deck that really is one to me to learn from, right? The massive guidebook is very good. And I feel like, this is another one, like the Animal Allies, that would be one that I want to sit with a card for a while. I probably am not going to pick just a card of the day from this. And it's not really an affirmation, but it is a potential source of support, right? So that's another one card way of reading. A third one card draw that you might try with an oracle deck would be an oracle deck to, shuffle up, pick a card, and either meditate on that card or journal about that card. Not every way of working with an oracle deck has to be a reading, has to be answering a question, has to be divinatory. Not necessarily. you might just decide to pick one card. And this is a Life Path cards by Kristen of Over the Moon Academy, who's one of my favorite Oracle deck creators. Prolific Oracle deck creator, amazingly talented. And the Life Path cards, of course, depict different paths. These are fantastic as a one-card draw for a pathworking meditation. Or just for kind of journaling, what the particular scene makes you feel like, what you think. Imagining what being on the particular path might be like and what you might be doing and seeing what that brings up for you. Or doing a kind of self-guided meditation through the space and seeing what comes up for you. Right? And this deck has numbers, but they're actually on the back. So for the imagery, you just get the image and nothing else. No keywords, no nothing. And I really like that that is how this deck is structured, because it means that it's entirely up to you what you see here, right? This path could speak to, potential stumbling points. It's rocky, right? It could be hard to navigate. This could speak to concern about the unknown with the fog and not knowing how something's going to turn out. It could be something like facing your fear of the unknown, right? There's lots of things that these might bring up in just a one card reading. Now, would I do a 9-card spread with this? No, I wouldn't. I don't think that it's necessarily, at least in terms of my approach to reading, what this deck is its strength, right? Now, you could do a 9-card spread with this and it could be amazing. But to me, this is a deck to meditate with, to reflect on, and to journal with, primarily. Another deck that I think really suits itself to being a kind of meditation prompt kind of a deck is the Tree Whisper Oracle by Maggie Black. And there's a couple of, there's 2 versions of this. And this is kind of spring-summer one. It has these really interesting mirror images of trees, many of which look like they are faces, right? Tree spirits, and a single keyword. You can totally get lost in these images. But these words are very good, I think, as prompts for meditation or for reflection, right? What does synchronicity mean to you? And how might it be relevant to your week, right? Freedom. What is freedom to you? What does the word freedom evoke? What does it mean? What does it make you want? Rewild. This is great. And this deck you could totally do a multi-card reading with. I have done multi-card readings with this, and it is wonderful to work with in that way. But I really like a reflective kind of one card. Draw one and journal for a while, and then revisit it and journal a little bit more kind of reading with this. Because I think that the concepts that Maggie has chosen just really lend themselves to that. And again, for somebody else, they might not, right? Sentience. I could reflect on sentience for a long time. I will be reflecting on sentience for a long time, right? And so I love working with this deck as a card to meditate with. Okay. Going into multi-card readings. And this can look a lot of different ways, right? A multi-card reading could be 3 cards, it could be 2 cards, it could be 9 cards. I like 9 as a number, personally. I also do 6 a lot. I do 5 at new and full moon times. I do 5-card readings. But the next way that I want to talk about working with oracles is doing a full reading, multi-card spread with only an oracle deck, right? And this could be a spread with specific spread positions like past, present, future, or like, what do I need to know today? What do I need to focus on today? What do I need to let go of from yesterday that's dragging me down? You could have really defined spread positions, or you could read in a more open way, reading cards kind of in relationship to each other and cumulatively without distinct spread positions. I like both ways of reading. And I think that this is a great way to work with Oracle, right? You can do it with tarot. Why not Oracle? Now, would I do again a 9-card spread with the ones that I use for single card affirmation? No, because to me it's not their strength. But a deck like the Earthbound Oracle is great for a multi-card reading. And some of this is a practical consideration like size, right? These are small. And so laying out a 9-card spread with this is manageable in ways that it isn't for me with my space constraints anyway. If I was using something like saltwater reading cards that's much larger. These do a great 9-card spread. These do a great past, present, future, or any of the many kind of permutations on a 3-card spread or a 2-card spread for, a daily reading that you might enjoy. I think that these messages, and they're, single words, are simultaneously general enough and specific enough to answer a question. They look great laid out. And I love reading this in a spread. Could you use this for a single card draw? Sure, why not? But to me, this one really excels in multi-card readings, for sure. So that's the Earthbound Oracle by Andrew Liam Swartz of Skull Garden. This is the same creator who did the Wooden Tarot as well, and several other decks, I believe. Another deck that is great for doing a reading with a full spread is the Endless Oracle. This is a fairly recent addition to my collection. It's a fairly recently published deck. It's really well done. And it has different figures in it. It has different structures in it, like the lighthouse. And it has a really good guidebook. This almost feels to me like a deck that inclines towards similar reading styles as something like Lenormand. Telling a story with the cards laid out in a sequence, reading from left to right, for example. This deck seems to really incline in that way. This is not a deck that I would personally choose for a 1-card draw. To me, this one shines in a multi-card reading. And the guidebook is quite comprehensive. Each card you get some keywords, meaning, some indication of the symbolism in the card, like if a specific constellation appears in the sky, for example, that will be mentioned. Creative notes where the author talks about what, kind of what he was thinking when he made the card, what inspired it. Maybe if it was a different idea first, it became something else. It's really, really good, this guidebook. And he talks about using this deck as a creative tool, like for storytelling, for example, for creating characters or a plot for something. You could come up with like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign using this deck. He has some spreads in here, a bridge spread, talking about the relationship between two things. Lots of ways to work with multiple, multiple cards in a reading. And it's a really good one. So I love doing Oracle readings with just Oracle cards and, nothing else in a large reading. And this is another one that inclines that way. A third one that I think is really good for this, for reading in spreads, is Kelly Fitzgerald's Journey Oracle. This one, of course, with its fun shape, it is really fun to, make different ways of laying the cards and having them kind of connect to each other on their edges. I can't see what I'm doing, but having them all form kind of a honeycomb together is a fun way of reading, and the guidebook gets into different ways of doing that. And this one just looks so cool laid out in a spread, because that's totally part of it too, right? How fabulous some decks look laid out in a huge multi-card spread. Could you do a one-card draw with this? Sure. But I don't. To me, there's just other styles of decks that are more particularly amenable to and particularly strong as a single card reading than this one, whereas this one inclines towards, for me, a multi-card reading, with one exception. There are a couple of cards in here, like the crystal card, and like the animal card, where one of the ideas of how you can work with it is to roll a d20 dice that came with the deck and have a list. So like you could have a list of 20 animals that you have the strongest relationships with, and if you pull the animal card, you'd roll one and find out which animal it represents, rather than just it representing animal in kind of a general way. Crystals and plants, the same thing. So that's a potentially cool kind of one card application of this deck, but I think that this is mostly a multi-card reading deck for me. Now, the next couple of things I want to share are ways of reading Oracle that involve combining Oracle with Tarot. Now, you could combine two Oracle decks together in a reading. You could combine Oracle with something else, like runes, I'm sure. But I want to think particularly about Oracle and Tarot, since I know a lot of folks, who watch my channel are here because Tarot's in the name, right? And maybe start with Tarot and move to Oracle, or vice versa. So the first I want to think about is combining Tarot and Oracle by using dedicated spread positions, okay? What do I mean by this? I mean when you are designing a tarot spread, right? Or perhaps you're using a tarot spread that you found online, or whatever, you're maybe modifying one, designating one of the spread positions to be for an oracle card, and then picking a deck that suits that. So as an example, to go back to Animal Allies again, you could have a tarot spread, any tarot spread you like, and have the last spread position be, what animal would be a good support for me right now in this situation that I'm doing the reading about. And you could do your tarot reading and then at the end pick one animal just for that spread position specifically, right? And it makes it kind of a separate part. Like it feels like a little bit like you're doing two readings, where you do the tarot reading first and then you've got this one card off to the side. But I think it's a fun way to get into designing spreads based on what's already in your collection anyway, right? You could add on um, what animal has a message for me or a lesson for me to like any spread that you like, in my opinion. Animals go with everything, right? Or maybe you find a spread online that you really like, and one of the spread positions is something like, what lesson do I need to learn? And you could say, okay, well, for that one, I'm going to put my tarot cards down and I'm going to pick one of these animals for that one. And then I'm going to go back to the tarot and finish, the spread with the tarot deck. And I think that's really fun, and a fun way to combine, the different things in your collection and use them in new ways, and a fun way to add Oracle decks in if you already have a tarot practice that you enjoy, but you're not sure where Oracle fits into your life. Add it on, add it on to what you're already doing. Another one that I think works really well for that, and I think really any deck can do this, right? You could do that with You could do that with one of the affirmation decks, like the Sea Soul Journeys. You could have a spread position, probably at the end is where I would put it, at the end of your tarot spread that says, what, message of encouragement does the universe have for me? However you would word that kind of a question for yourself, right? What is a wish to bring into manifestation around this issue? Joy, right? Bring joy to the situation. Wildness, right? So if you have an oracle deck and you're not sure what to do with it, and you're also a tarot reader, think about, well, what kind of a spread position would this deck that I have really be good at answering, right? Or be really well suited for, and come up with a couple of options of spread positions and see what you think and how that works. Another way to combine tarot and oracle that I really enjoy doing is by drawing multiple cards per spread position. And I do this with tarot anyway, and I'm not sure where I got this, but I want to say that it's Robert M. Place. I want to say that Robert M. Place's Tarot, History, Symbolism, and Divination is the book that gave me this. That book talks about, I'm looking for my tarot deck now. Any tarot deck will do. That book talks about how, if you are doing, let's say, a 3-card spread of past, present, future, how much more kind of nuanced and complex the reading gets if instead of doing a 3-card reading, you do a 6-card reading and you draw 2 per spread position. So let's say for past, we picked Judgment and the 8 of Wands, right? Okay, in the past, there's maybe there's been some self-criticality and giving yourself a hard time about not being fast enough. Like just kind of talking off the top of my head. 2 cards per spread position, or even 3 cards per spread position, making the spread larger that way, is something that I really like doing. I find that the messages are just more interesting that way, and it gets your brain out of keyword thinking, right? If you're a beginner, reading a past, present, future spread is great, but combining 2 cards for, say, present, the Hermit and the High Priestess, right? Like, what do those 2 things as a present situation combined suggest? It gets you out of just going to the keywords for the card, right? So I think it's a good learning thing as well. Multiple cards per spread position. Now you can do that with Oracle too, right? So if you were saying, past, present, future is just an easy one to talk about because everybody knows, I think, what it is. If you're doing a 3-card past, present, future spread, you could make it a 6-card spread by, for each position, choosing 1 tarot card and 1 oracle card. And these are the Spirit Doodles by L. Ron Mills. And this is a deck that really works well in this way. Own your power. Act. Wisdom. This is a good single card because the book is so good. The book has like songs and all different kinds of associations for each of the cards that I really like exploring. But this plays very well with others. Joy. Embrace abundance. Change positions, right? Like, what if for, I don't know, a future position in a spread, you got the High Priestess and you also got accept, Maybe this has to do not only with kind of intuition and emotional intelligence, but also like listening to yourself, right? Accepting those sources of knowledge that you have that are often kind of denigrated culturally, certainly. So you could do that with this deck. And I find this deck visually like just looks cool with a lot of things as well. It's a cool deck. Oh, those are the blank ones. There are some blank cards in this one so that if you want to make your own doodles, then you can. But these just they're fun and they're small. and they're fun to put with all kinds of other different kinds of decks, I think. And Elrond has on Instagram pictures of these big multi-deck readings that are really interesting and really good. Another deck I think that works really well to combine with tarot for different spread positions is another one of Kristen and Over the Moon Academy, her decks, and this is the Nature Magic Oracle. And this is black and white, very close up pictures of plants. And the keywords are all kind of descriptor words, right? Unified, everlasting, unfamiliar. So this deck, I think, like what this deck is really cool to use is as a kind of modifier for the tarot card. So again, if you're doing your favorite 3-card spread, mind, body, and spirit. I don't know. There's lots of 3-card spreads, but if you're doing your favorite one, you could, instead of just drawing 3 tarot, draw 6 cards. For each position you draw 1 and 2, right? The Knight of Wands is interesting. What about the Knight of Wands combined with fragile? You know, the 4 of Cups combined with barren as an answer to a spread position question. Like that's very provocative, I think. The world entwined. Like that's amazing. And so I think that a deck that has these kind of descriptor words on it that are like characteristics, you know, this is a really kind of good type of deck to combine with tarot in spread positions. Another one I think that would work very well in this way would be something like the Compendium of Constellations by Claire Goodchild of Black and the Moon. Here we get different constellations and a simple keyword. Enlighten, magic, Orion is narcissism. You know, this would combine very well with tarot, and as I'm looking at it right now, it would combine very well with the Fyodor Pavlov in terms of the color schemes of these, to pick 2 cards per spread position, 1 tarot and 1 oracle. I think that would be really cool. I think that these also, you could pick one of these and one from the Earthbound Oracle and combine them that way, and that could be a cool multi-card, multi-deck oracle reading. So lots of options again. Now, briefly, I want to talk about some decks that I use for purposes other than readings altogether, right? And then I'll talk about the really multi-purpose decks. But there are a couple of decks in my collection that are oracle decks that I don't do readings with at all, that I use for completely other reasons. But since this is a HowIOracle, I thought that I would mention those as well. You know, lots of people do, for example, work with Oracle or Tarot or other kinds of systems like this for story writing, right? So that would be an example of something you could do that's a non-reading purpose. The Living Wheel Astrology cards, this is a deck that I do not do readings with. I mean, could you do a reading with it? Sure, I suppose. But I mostly use this for kind of, I don't want to say display purposes, but there's 2 cards per season in this deck. So like an early spring, early fall, late fall, etc. And I always have that out on my druidry table for whatever season that it is. There are cards for the different moon phases. So when I'm doing a full moon reading for myself, I will put out the full moon card, for example, as a kind of focal point visually on the reading table. There are also cards for all the different planets. There are cards for the different um, zodiac signs, and there are cards for the houses as well. So I really like this as a tool to lay out and visualize a birth chart. I really like this as a tool to put in a card stand to show the position of a particular planet. If I'm focusing on, a particular transit, then that's really good for this. This is not a deck that I would shuffle and do a reading with though. But it is a deck that I find very useful. Another in my collection, I don't have too many of these that I don't use for readings, but there's a few. Another example is this Crystal Wisdom Healing Oracle, which is just it's high resolution photos of different crystals, and there's a guidebook that has all different things about the crystals in it. The reason that I bought this is because I don't buy crystals for ethical reasons related to the environment and related to labor and labor exploitation. And so if I want to, you know, think about a crystal or have the energy of a crystal in my space, then this does that for me without me needing to have the physical crystal itself. You could totally shuffle this up and do a reading with it. You could shuffle it and draw one as the kind of supportive energy you need for the day. If that's a way that you work with crystals, you could do that. Lots of things you could do with it. For me, that doesn't include shuffling it and doing a reading though. So that's another one that I use for completely non-reading purposes. So I'll finish just by sharing some decks that I find are very multi-purpose decks that work well in lots of the different ways that I've mentioned, that I can find a lot of different aspects of my practice that they work well with. The first one is the Iami Oracle by Aminat Oladipo. This is a beautiful oracle deck with beautiful large cards. And I don't know what she used, but somehow this is the non-sticky, non-clumpy rose petal finish. Somehow. It and it's apparently it's water resistant, which is fabulous. Like this deck feels very luxurious to me and very beautiful. And this deck, it is suggested in the guidebook that you could draw 3 cards and do a 3-card reading with it. This deck absolutely could be a 1-card draw. The guidebook has enough information. You could draw it and read the message for the day. Drawing 1 card for the day or the week. You could incorporate this into a tarot reading and draw 1 at the end of the tarot reading if you wanted to. Something about the color palette of this, it looks really beautiful laid out in a spread, but also looks really beautiful with lots of other decks as well. Really, really beautiful. So this one I find is amenable to lots of different reading styles. I would also say the Illuminated Earth Oracle, which is by Claire Mack. And this is a deck actually I will mention something that, with Oracle decks, I leave a lot of cards out. Like leave a lot of cards in the box and don't use them in this deck because there's a very small handful of cards in this deck that have people on them, and I don't really like them. I like not that I'm saying that the art is bad or anything. I like this as a people-free deck more. This deck feels very multi-purpose to me because again, you could do a 1-card meditation with this deck. This deck combines very well with tarot in a spread. And this deck is one that, like something like the Earthbound Oracle or the Journey Oracle, this works very well in a spread on its own, or in a large reading on its own as well. It also looks good with a lot of different decks. It's not an affirmation deck, definitely not, but you know, one card reading or multi-card reading paired with other things or not, it works in all of those ways to me. And I think that the simplicity of the keywords has a lot to do with that. And I would also say a deck that recently joined my collection, and I will be sharing a detailed review walkthrough of this deck shortly, is the One with the Earth Oracle by Kim at Abundant Life Tarot here on YouTube. This one is very, very multi-purpose as well. This could be a card of the day. This could be in a spread on its own. You know, I could do a 9-card spread with this, and this is tarot sized. So this is easier than a lot of the Oracle decks that are much larger to fit a larger reading on your table with, which does matter. You could do a 3-card reading with this. You could combine this with tons of tarot decks. I find photographic decks combine well with other things a lot. Like they don't clash aesthetically with a lot of decks, in my opinion. This card. Look at this little child's face. I love this. I love this. I'm obsessed with this deck. And it's a great multi-purpose reader that I think you could really do just about anything with. And that's where I'm going to leave this in terms of how I oracle. I oracle by doing a single card reading as an affirmation. I oracle doing a single card reading as a guide or as an inspiration. I oracle by doing a single card reading to give me something to meditate on or to journal about. I do full readings with Oracle deck and an Oracle deck only. I combine Oracle with Tarot, pulling multiple cards per position, and I combine Oracle with Tarot using dedicated spread positions for the different decks that I'm using. So that's how I work with Oracle, and I'm always looking for another way to work with Oracle. So if you have others that you would like to share but aren't inclined to make a video, do feel free below. I love chatting about how people read. So have a wonderful day, and I will see you all again soon.